Hey everyone, we're going to be watching ARC Riders Review. So everyone wants to see
The mark of a truly stellar multiplayer game is when you and your friends are having as much fun in your 50th hour as you were in your first. And that's a test Arc Raiders passes with flying colors. This is without question the most hooked I've found myself on an extraction shooter, with clean, intense gunplay, an incredibly satisfying progression system, and a loot game that has me sweating over what to put in my backpack and what to leave behind. Even with a few bugs to gunk up the gears, just about every journey topside to scavenge from the wastes and battle devious robotic overlords has been a complete blast, especially when accompanied by friends. After years of promising but uneven attempts, Arc Raiders feels like the first to fully realize this genre's potential, and has set a new standard for it in the process.
Not bad.
Arc Raiders follows the usual extraction shooter formula of dropping you into a hostile zone to take down NPC enemies, scramble for loot, and then get back out alive. All while looking over your shoulder for rival crews who would love nothing more than to crack you open like a meat piñata and take everything you've collected. It doesn't do much to iterate or expand on those fundamentals, but it does absolutely nail them, and that's harder to do than it might sound. Even some of my favorites like Hunt Showdown and Escape from Tarkov have always felt like rough drafts of what these daring, high-risk, high-reward multiplayer games could be, so it's long overdue for us to get a highly competent and very polished version like Arc Raiders. One of the main ways it succeeds is in its stressful gunplay. Weapons only have a few rounds in each magazine, they take a good deal of time to reload, and the robot NPCs are either much faster than you or can rain down missiles. This means I'm usually feeling like a rodent sneaking around to scavenge food and supplies from the world before slinking back to base. But when a fight does break out, it's charged with delightful anxiety thanks to the knowledge that you're about to either lose everything you fought for or grab some awesome gear off the corpses of those you've bested. That's true against both AI-controlled opponents and human players. But I've been genuinely shocked by how nice much of the community has been. Especially when playing solo, where other solo players are prioritized in your matches, I found it downright commonplace to encounter friendly folks who are more interested in working together than fighting, which has been a really nice change of pace from the normally sweaty matches. Granted, I've also run into plenty of people who say they're friendly, only to shoot me in the back of the head and then shout a racial slur at my corpse, but hey, it's still better than that being the norm. And if I do find myself interested in some good old PvP, the non-solo queues tend to be a lot more aggressive, which gives a chance for these high-stakes bouts to shine. Dodge rolling to avoid incoming gunfire and ducking behind cover to heal up before returning fire on an enemy squad is some of the most fun I've had in an extraction shooter, especially when you've got an arsenal of interesting gadgets, grenades, and leveled up guns you've bled for over the course of numerous matches. For example, I did a number on my opponents with my Torrent light machine gun, and coming locked and loaded with a handful of Wolfpack grenades that send homing missiles everywhere to take down drones before they become a threat made me feel unstoppable. It might not have the mechanical crispness of something like Remnant 2, but it's leagues above what we've seen in a live service extraction shooter before. Of course, if you're battling online foes, there are moments where you'll come up short and lose it all to a rival player. That stings, but it just wouldn't be as fun without that risk. The beauty of Arc Raiders, and what makes it far more approachable than most other extraction shooters, is how effortless its easy come, easy go loot feels. One way it accomplishes this is by providing pretty substantial free loadouts to use when you're down on your luck, which are just powerful enough to get you back on your feet after a successful run or two. Plus, it gives you lots of ways to regain better equipment, like crafting and upgrading your own using spare parts you've collected, or by just buying some hardware from a vendor using cold hard cash. Even when you're getting shipped back home to your base in pieces, it's hard to feel like you've been set back for very long, since a single good run can reverse your fortunes, and that's definitely worth the occasional gut punch when you're taken for all you're worth. There are still some instances where losing your hard-fought loot just sucks though, like how you'll occasionally get matched against an organized crew of 3 while playing solo. There were also times where I fell victim to unfortunate bugs that resulted me in losing some of my most cherished items. Once my character became stuck in the environment until enemies picked me off, and even after being revived by teammates, I was unable to dislodge myself. And I ultimately lost that Torrent machine gun I loved so much when I phased through the environment while climbing a ladder, falling to my death. Thankfully, these occurrences were extremely rare, and one really impressive part of Arc Raiders is just how well it runs otherwise, maintaining a rock-solid 60 FPS on Xbox Series X, and pushing well beyond that on my high-end PC. But while I can count on one hand the amount of times I found myself pissed off at the injustice of a bug across the 50 hours I've played, when the stakes are as high as they are, even a tiny amount of this kind of stuff can be downright infuriating. The main reason its hyper-competitive dynamic manages to never sting for long is its incredibly well-designed progression system, which brilliantly makes every match an opportunity for forward momentum, even when you've just lost all your best loot. Arc Raiders accomplishes this by giving you a whole bunch of treadmills to run on at the same time. There's a quest system that unlocks bits of story and introduces you to various mechanics by giving you a checklist of stunts to pull off, character XP you gain just by playing matches that grant skill points to dump into skill trees, crafting stations that can be upgraded with the right materials, weekly trials that grant all sorts of powerful rewards upon completion, and the Expedition Project that lets you prestige and reset your character in exchange for vanity rewards. Things like the skills you unlock aren't always particularly interesting, but there are just so many different ways to make satisfying progress, which goes a long way toward making Arc Raiders more approachable than its peers.
I've been thinking, maybe they didn't make it. Maybe they burned out in the void.
It's good the mechanical progression is consistently engaging, because the story told through its quests doesn't impress, not that it's really what you're here for in the first place. World building actually has a lot of promise, as I'm genuinely curious about the post-apocalyptic surface world that's been ravaged by environmental disasters and the mysterious motives of the robots that now control it.
Something's changed. We've seen a lot more probes beaming across the skies.
But there's almost nothing to flesh it out beyond a few dialogue snippets while chatting with vendors, and some small drips of lore about the mechanical minions you're fighting. I hope they'll dig into this stuff more in the future because it's a neat foundation in theory, but it's pretty clear developer Embark Studios didn't care much about the story at all. That's perhaps best exemplified by the fact that many of the voices are done by AI, which is extremely apparent in their flat and unremarkable deliveries.
Well, if it's an arms race they want, they can get one.
One place that world building does get to shine though, a little bit, is across the 4 maps that are currently available, all of which are very cool and have distinct vibes to them, from the ruined husk of a waterlogged dam to a city buried in red sand. It's a good thing that they're so great to look at too, because you'll spend a whole lot of time trekking back and forth through them in search of loot. With only a handful of areas to explore, it wasn't terribly long before I felt like I'd seen the vast majority of the zones. But there's also tons of hidden nooks and crannies and secret areas that can only be accessed with the proper know-how or rare keycard drop, which did a great job at keeping me interested in retracing my steps. Another thing that makes exploring each zone really rewarding is learning how to best the various NPC opponents you find along the way. What starts out as tiny drones that can be fairly easily brought down quickly turn into swarms of dangerous hovering robots and their more intimidating siblings that can only be destroyed with the aid of some serious firepower. Some of the interactions between these robotic foes are pretty impressive, like how hovering little surveillance cameras called snitches will mark you for execution for all their friends, who then fly in to attack you, or worse yet, rain in ballistic missiles from a distance that turn the area around you into a blast zone. The way the enemy is able to work together to overwhelm you with superior numbers and instantaneous coordination makes getting caught out in the open an incredibly scary situation that I lost many a loot haul to. There's also a nice mix of your basic roly-poly enemies that shoot fire or explode, but die when they're so much as sneezed at, and massive, scary-looking robots like the marauding queen enemy that can only be dealt with by a fully loaded group of raiders. That said, these automatons aren't the most critical of thinkers and often lose track of you the second you duck behind a tree or turn a corner. They also seem to have trouble navigating some of the environments, and you can sometimes see them look like they're confused wandering off or getting stuck on the corner of a building before giving up the chase. Another nitpick I have with fighting the NPC enemies is just how long it takes before you stand a chance against any of them aside from the weakest drones. I probably played for over 20 hours before I felt properly geared to take down one of the spider-like leapers or deadly rocketeers. I would have liked for a faster climb towards being able to confront some of these baddies, because for a stretch there, it felt like I'd never be able to, and tiptoeing around can get old after a while.
You also have a weak too, but probably not.
Arc Raiders raises the bar for extraction shooters pretty much across the board, with an incredibly gripping progression grind, tense fights against NPCs and other players that make for memorable matches, and loot that feels completely worth all the work and stress it takes to obtain it. The fact that it manages to also run well and look amazing all the while is just downright impressive, even if a few bugs here and there lead to the rare rage quit. For years, I'd been wondering when someone would take the awesome promise of this genre to the next level, and Arc Raiders is without question what I've been waiting for. For more recent shooters, check out our reviews of Battlefield RedSec or Painkiller. And for everything else,
yeah, let me know what you all think of this. If you've played the game before, I haven't. I have so many games that I want to play that I have, and I haven't really live streamed a lot of them. But there's a couple that I have. But yeah, there's a lot more games I have to live stream with. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments down below about the game. If you play it, let me know. Like, comment, share, subscribe if you're new. Check out my socials in the description. Also, the social and also the video will be in the description too. Bye, everyone.